Today's lesson is 3-6, solving absolute value inequalities. Just like when you solve absolute value equations, you're going to do two problems. One of the problems is going to be the positive answer, and the other problem is going to be the negative answer. But this time, you need to remember that you're going to flip the inequality around when you write your negative. Okay? So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to do two problems. We're going to put 2n plus 3 as less than or equal to 5. Then we're going to do 2n plus 3. We're going to flip the sign around at this point and put negative 5. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and solve the equation or the inequality just like we did any other inequality. Subtract 3 from both sides. You've got 2n, keep the sign, and we have 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2. My n is going to be less than or equal to, and remember these are large and in charge ones, and that's a 1, and it's 1. Do the same thing with the next problem. We're going to subtract 3, subtract 3. We have 2n, keep the sign in this direction, negative 8. Divide by 2, divide by 2. My n is going to be greater than or equal to, 2 will go into 8, negative 4. So here's my two answer choices, or my two answer solutions. But this one, now, because we're working with inequalities, we need to graph to find out exactly what answers will go in place of n. Okay, so the two that I have boxed up there, that is what we're going to graph. So we're going to draw our number line. We're going to put negative 4 over here. Number line goes on forever. Here's our 0. And then we're going to put 1, positive 1 right here. Okay, so the blue equation here says 1n is less than or equal to 1, so it's going to be a closed circle. And then my arrow is going to go towards the smaller numbers than 1. Okay, my red one, I'll go ahead and use a red color for that. We're going to be at negative 4. There's a line under it, so it's going to be a solid circle there. And then we go back and read it like a book. N is bigger than. It's going to go in that direction. Okay, so the answer is 4, negative 4, and 1, and all the numbers that are in between there. So like 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Those are all numbers that you can plug in for n that would make that answer, or make that equation, or its absolute value inequality true. Okay, number 2 is 5 is greater than the absolute value of x plus 2 plus 3. So just like when you're doing equations, the absolute value, you want to get the absolute value on its side by itself. So therefore, I need to disconnect, and I'm going to disconnect the 3 from this side of the inequality. So I'm going to disconnect by doing the opposite. So now I have, it's gone over here. I have the absolute value of x plus 2 on this side still. I keep my sign for now. And I have positive 2. Okay, now at this point, that's when you're going to do your two equations. So I'm going to keep my 2 as a positive, keep the sign. It's x plus 2. Then over here, I'm going to make this a negative 2, flip the sign around, and make it x plus 2. Okay, so let's just go ahead now and solve these inequalities. So I've got subtract 2 from this side, subtract 2 from this side. It's gone over here. I have my x left, keep the sign, and it's 0. Same thing over on this other equation. I'm going to subtract 2 from here, subtract 2 from here. This is gone over here. Keep my x on that side, and it's -4. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we are going to graph it. So I'm going to move down a little bit. We're going to take our two answers, which are right here and right here. So, and now we're going to make a number line. Okay, 0's in the middle. We have our -4, and we have our +4. And they're both open circles. So my red one is open at 0. Read it like a book. X is smaller than, so it's going to go in that direction. And then I'm going to take my green one, and it's at -4. It's open circle, and it says x is larger than, so it's going to go in that direction. So the numbers that will work to solve your absolute value inequality is -1, -2, -3. Those would be the answer choices that would work. 0 wouldn't work, and -4 would not work because it would make it equal to and not, it wouldn't work in the equation. Okay, so that's number 2. And then we're going to do one more. Okay, so number 3, it's -2 times the absolute value of h minus 2 is greater than -2. Okay, on absolute value, your goal is to get the absolute value sign and whatever's inside on one side of the inequality sign or the equal sign, and then get the numbers on the other. So our very first step is we need to get absolute value by itself. So we're going to divide this by -2. What do we do to one side? We have to do the other. This is a large and in charge 1. What I have left here is the absolute value of h minus 2. I'm going to change the sign because I divided by a negative, and it becomes a +1. Okay, the next thing is we're going to do two equations. We're going to have h minus 2, that's an h, is less than 1, and then we're going to have h minus 2, flip the sign around the other direction, is greater than -1. Okay, and now we're just going to solve. I'm going to go ahead and use black. We're going to add 2 to both sides. So I have h is less than 3. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And then we have h is greater than 1. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to, let me move this down just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and graph it and then kind of test to make sure that our answers are correct. Okay, I will use a red number line this time. Okay, 0 is here. We've got 3 over here, 1 here, and then I'll put a -1 here. Remember, the number lines go straight on both sides. The arrow goes in both directions. Okay, the 3. So h is open circle at 3. And then it says h is smaller than, so it's going to go in that direction. And then we've got, let's use black, at +1. Do it again, +1, open circle, and h is larger than, goes in this direction. So in between here we have 2. So now let's just test to make sure the 2 works. We've got -2, parentheses, 2 minus 2, close parentheses, greater than -2. So then I have -2, 2 minus 2 is 0, and then we have -2. Absolute value of 0 is 0, so -2 times 0, -2. Is 0 bigger than -2? And it is, so it checks out. So that is a solution. That is the solution. Is 1 a solution? No. Is 3 a solution? No. So just the only real solution is all those numbers. You could even use fractions and decimals. They would make that absolute value inequality true.